and then our regular March and April meetings. I thought they were fantastic. You
I
have
have
Decide I
one
have to leave early.
update.
I have
On
some-
Yes.
the April 24th and April 14th meeting, Jan Kelsey is listed as a volunteer and she is actually an alternate. And so she should be up with the members and alternates.
Oh, good catch.
I don't know what I am,
Good
actually.
catch. Yes, you're an alternate.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry about that. Oh,
Good catch.
I'm just so excited when I can find something and prove that I read the minutes.
That's good.
great. You're right, yeah.
Okay, so moving on to my report. First of all, just a reminder that our next meeting will be June 9th at 4 o'clock, our next regular meeting, although that may, there may be additional meetings. As you know, I've canceled that horrendous list of meetings that I kept emailing everybody. Those have all been cleared off the town calendar, just because I needed to create a new schedule going forward after some correspondence with Jeremy and the town in terms of kind of a new approach to how we move forward with the HPO, which we'll get to later. But so right now, no other scheduled meetings except our regular meeting, although that will be changing. As a reminder about membership, we have several terms expiring in June. So I believe there are 3 members expiring in June as well as alternates. So Janet, I think you actually technically expire in June.
I do.
Brian, you expire. Chris, you expire. And I think you do as well, Danny.
Many times.
Yes. So what that means is if you are going to continue on the committee, which I hope all of you do, you need to resubmit that form so the select board in their renewal meeting just renews us. And I know that, it is a 3-year term and we do have occasional turnover or people feel like they've reached a place where their contribution, they may want to step away. That's fine, but I would hope everyone just renews their term. And then if somebody needs to step away from the committee, we can kind of transition that slowly, find a replacement before you step away. So I'm hoping everyone renews. So
Chris, sorry, so it's me, Chris Fessel, who else?
you can look at the website, but I believe it's you, Chris Vessel, and Danny, and also Janet. If I can pull up the website real
Can you
quick.
email us the form that we need to
I
submit?
can, but it's just,
Well, Brian,
it's either in the
Brian,
town office or,
I don't have the form.
don't have it.
It's on the town website.
it's just on the town website,
Oh,
under committees.
okay.
Sorry, Chris, when do we need to submit that by?
Over the next month would be great.
Okay.
I've almost got it here. Sorry, it's just taking a second. Yes, Brian, Danny, Chris Fasselt, Janet, and Roger. We have 5 expirations. And then the only question, I think, Chris, I know that technically no one is supposed to serve more than 2 terms, but I know you already have, and I suspect the select board will just continue to renew. But so I don't expect there to be any complications, but I just felt I should call that out. Yeah, okay. All right. Next on the agenda is Montgomery Dam, and I wanted to give you a little update. So as you know, we were on the agenda for May 6th to present kind of our neutral findings of historicity on Montgomery Dam, and we were taken off the agenda a day or 2 before that meeting, so we did not get a chance to present. So I put creating the presentation on hold. I was a little frustrated about that and the last minute notice. So in terms of next steps, I have been drafting a letter from the Historic Resources Committee that I think captures the spirit of what we all talked about. So I will be posting it up as a Google Doc soon to get everyone's input, edits, feedback, and response if they want to proceed with sending this to the newspapers. I think people will be on board with it, but I don't want to speak for you all. So just be looking for that link soon. If the committee does not want to post it, I probably will just leave it dead, but I might consider changing it a little bit and just posting it as a citizen, not as representative of the Historic Resources Committee, but I'll cross that dam when we get there. It's going to be very interesting what happens in June. I cannot read the climate at all. It just, the town seems so divided on this. Very, very interesting. And I think it'll be really interesting what our role will be as we discussed either way the town votes. I wanted to give a little shout out to the cafe. Oh my God, what a great job you did.
Thanks.
I went in there and I was praising your work and they were praising you. I think that has been a fantastic use of deconstruction and reuse. So that's great to be able to point to that. It looks fantastic
Thanks.
and it has a nice vibe in there and people just seem really excited about the whole thing. So
Oh, that's
great
to
job
hear.
with the cafe.
Thank you. And there will be a little exhibition going up soon that tells people that it was all from a deconstructed house like 3 blocks away. And hopefully we can do that other thing that we talked
Yeah,
about
yeah.
in the breezeway soon too. So
It
Yeah.
really turned out fantastic. I was just blown away by how much it changed in those last 4 weeks. Oh my God.
yeah, I know.
Wow.
A lot came together. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is, I want to talk about the historic preservation ordinance, but that's later on the agenda, so I'll reserve comment on that. Ken, did you have anything you wanted to share from select board liaison standpoint?
No, Chris, I don't have any insights about your trying to get on the agenda and then getting bumped off, except I think the auditor's feeling was that if it were on the agenda, that would open the floodgates to a wide discussion on Montgomery Dam. And it's not because she was avoiding you or the Historic Resources Committee, but more trying to avoid that long, lengthy discussion.
And I've presumed that would also be true about reapproaching to get on the May 20th meeting. So I kind of felt that it was not a good idea to resubmit or request a time at that meeting. So would you assume that's kind of a good reading on the situation?
I would agree, yes.
Okay. All right. Is there any other issues that have come up or that you feel would be pertinent for the group or?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, great. All right, well, that moves us to the preservation ordinance. So a couple updates. I've had some talks with various people. As you know, some of you were on the call with Megan Rideout from the state, and she really outlined some specific edits we need to make to the document in order to get ourselves up to CLG standards. She gave very specific pointed edits, which I am in process of doing. But I also received input from planning here in town, and they are really stepping up the, I'll say insistence, but that's my own word, that we really need to move the public input phase, accelerate that. So they're really concerned that if we go too far down the development path without public input, it would perhaps have the appearance of town government trying to force homeowners to live by an ordinance or code, or might be kind of perceived as quote unquote government overreach. So I think that is good counsel. And so he is really pushing for the public workshops happening as soon as we can make them happen, which is really already the plan, but we kind of outlaid together a flow for how that workshop might work. And I think he gave some really good input. I also met with Ethan Shaw at the planning board and kind of wanted to get him up to speed as to what we've been doing and the history going back to Pat and even before with Rosalie, just kind of all the steps of the historic preservation ordinance. And then as it relates to the comprehensive plan. And he appreciated getting up to speed and wants to put us on the next planning board meeting to give an overview of what the historic preservation encompasses. He did not want to speak for the planning board, but I think the general feeling from him was that it's great that we're picking up on the recommendations of the comprehensive plan and moving this forward, and that the planning board would probably support and be on board with these efforts, and that it would all come down to the devil's in the details of the actual ordinance, but philosophically they would be on board with this. And he kind of gave me some good thoughts about how to engage with the public, given the experience they've had with some of the code that they have moved forward. So it was really, I thought it was really constructive, and it was good for us to meet, because I really wanted to be collaborative. And he also thought the bottom line was, and Jeremy agreed, that the planning board really doesn't have a role in this. I mean, they can certainly play a role in advocacy, but this really comes down to our group, the select board, and the state of Maine are really the players in developing and creating this. So, so I just thought it was really good that I finally got to meet with him. Let's see, what else do I want to share about historic preservation ordinance? So I have been folding in Megan's comments into the ordinance itself, but given Jeremy's concern that we really need to put public input first and foremost, I think more than ever, I already did not want to share our draft with the public prematurely, and even more so now. So I really want to make sure that those public workshops are true input sessions and true, listening sessions and educational sessions, and not in any way give the impression that this ordinance is so far down the path that we're just looking, this is a formality and we're just looking for public buy-in and the public doesn't have a voice in this, because that's not the case. And I think that by presenting a draft, it will kind of give that impression. So I think the plan is to have 2 workshops with a 3rd optional workshop, and then after that, present a draft that encompasses some of the feedback we've received. And I think the main thing, the kind of flow of that workshop generally is going to be laying out that the comprehensive plan laid out, the wording is very decisive about the Historic Resources Committee needs to move forward with a historic preservation ordinance that is CLG compliant, and how that was then reaffirmed with the vote last November, and also reaffirmed by the 2020 demolition ordinance. So there are all these things kind of building to an actual completion of an ordinance, and then lay out what are the mandatory elements of a historic preservation ordinance as told by the state in terms of making CLG compliance, and then really lay out what are the variables that a town can change and still be CLG compliant. So to kind of organize the workshop about those things that Camden can ultimately decide, because there's certain things that the town can't decide if we're going to be CLG compliant. They're just mandatory elements of the ordinance. So it's really just well defining what are the things that we are really deciding, apart from do we want this ordinance or not? What are the things that we in the town can change? So
Can I just ask a
yeah.
question?
Mhm.
If you're going to do this pre-release of a draft,
Mhm.
how do you
Pre-release of the draft? No, I don't want to release the draft.
pre-release of a draft?
Okay,
You want
gotcha.
to do these before
Mhm,
releasing a draft.
Mhm.
So does that, I'm assuming that changes the structure of the meeting. Like before you can have any input, you have to educate. And if there's not a draft for people to look at ahead of time and kind of like read and understand.
Mhm.
So educating is going to take a long, if you are envisioning an hour meeting.
No, I'm imagining like a 30-minute presentation
Uh-huh.
and then like an hour of input.
Okay. I'm just
Something like
curious
that. Yeah.
what the structure would be.
Yeah. And again, none of these things will happen without everyone's feedback and me, this is not me doing this on alone. This is just me kind of trying to start things. Does all of that make sense? And are there any questions about that? So it was actually really nice I was just, to be honest, really frustrated last week. I was really frustrated that we were pulled off the meeting agenda and a feeling that we were spinning our wheels to a certain extent with the preservation ordinance. So I'm feeling more revitalized, and it was very affirming to hear support by the planning board and also continued support by Jeremy, provided we kind of do things in the way he is recommending, and that he still thinks November is a doable goal to get on the warrant. So that's going to be the goal. And anyway, any other discussion around the historic preservation ordinance?
Just remind me what CLG stands for again. I've tried to,
Certified local government.
sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, certified.
So it's the program by which priority grants and funding from the state are allocated. So if we are one of the 11 CLG towns, then the funds are first dispersed to the CLGs. So it's really a grant mechanism, which I'm sure Michael has experience with that.
I was going to ask you a question, Pat. I noticed on the questions that we prepared for Stu, you said something about CLG, and your question was like, now towns tend to not be applying for that? Wasn't there something?
There's a little bit of a question why the program hasn't taken off, why there aren't more towns applying for it, because it seemed to be a hot issue about 5 or 7 years ago. And we've heard that a couple towns have dropped out of the program. And so I kind of want to know what are the reasons for that? And should we be aware of that?
So in my discussions with the different commissioners that I spoke to, the feedback was, depending on the town, they were either taking advantage of the grants or not. And if they were not, then the paperwork of maintaining the CLG was onerous. There was no cost benefit there. So that was the reasoning I was given.
And I wonder now with the funding cutbacks in general, if the state's going to have money for CLGs, which doesn't mean that we should not pursue an ordinance just
Yeah.
because there's no CLG money.
Right.
Because an ordinance has value in and of itself.
Right.
But, yeah.
It's also just a good benchmark for us to meet.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of grant money approved in November, specifically for historic preservation. I don't believe that's been put on hold yet.
Mike's
It's
knows
been slowed down. Apparently, there was no state funds available, or they didn't go after state funds to administer that $10 million. So there was no way to administer it, which is hard, but I think it's mixed up in what's going on in Washington.
Yeah.
And some of the resources from Washington would probably be used within the state. And my guess is the state was figuring, we'll use our internal people to manage this $10 million. And so I talked directly with the head of Maine, was our SHPO, or Maine Historic Preservation Commission. And she said, what we're going to do is go back to the state and get the funding that we need to administer this 10 million. And so instead of it opening up in August, it looks like it'll open up in December. And so they pushed it out one cycle. And that's probably, I think that's probably good news, but to me, it's still hopeful that this 10 million is going to be available to us. And And there's no, in that 10 million, there's not a connection to CLGs. There was no advantage for CLGs. So it put us in terms of the island and us wanting to go after a grant to support the light tower. We're still hoping for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it'll be in 3 cycles. It's just all moved like a quarter of the year.
As far as you know, were this to make its way onto the warrant in November and pass, and we then move forward with getting our CLG certification, are there any funds that you're aware of that we would have access to help with Curtis Island restoration? Or
You mean other than that 10 million?
yeah,
No,
Or any
because I
grant?
think I have a small grant in from Maine Community Foundation through the county, and that's just $10,000. Not just, but it's $10,000. And I'll be hearing about that in June, and that's still active. But I think some of the other state money that had been coming in from Washington, there's been a hold on that. And there was something that came out. Did you get a notice the last week or so from Maine? Was it Maine Historic Preservation?
Yeah.
Not the state office, but
Yeah.
I wonder, how did the 10 million get through?
thank you.
It already arrived before
Thanks, Janet.
all the cuts were made.
yes, I mean, we voted on that last November?
Yeah.
We voted on that.
Yep,
and-
yep.
And so there's a pot of money sitting there. It's state money. It's not federal money. It's just waiting to have someone administer it. And
It's a bond.
it's a bond.
Yeah. And is there a 25% matching?
Yeah, it is a 25% match. And what we thought we would do, and this is just picturing forward, is if the town wrote a grant for, say, 250,000, and our foundation matched that, it would be like another 60,000 to match it. And then that would, our hope was that would pretty much take care of the light tower, and that would be funds to do the masonry work and the extensive metal work and everything there. So that was like kind of our picture of it from
Yeah.
the foundation. It is a pretty sizable match.
All right, we'll come back to Curtis Island. So deconstruction, Danny, anything to kind of tell us about on that
Yeah,
front?
so we started Chestnut Street about 2 weeks in, so like about halfway through. And then part of what we're doing with this house, so my team and I are organizing a radical reuse festival in Union at the end of the summer.
Oh, wow.
Sort of like a craft fair for folks, artists, craftspeople, furniture makers, builders of all sorts who are in some way committed or willing to commit to using reclaimed materials. So we've had people coming to the site and they're taking materials from this one house. We're dispersing it so that we can show like what you can make, like the diversity of projects with just the materials from one house. So a few examples, Jim Doble, I don't know if that name is familiar to anyone. He's so out in Union, he makes musical instruments out of reclaimed materials. At the Botanical Gardens, he did all the musical instruments in like the kids' play area. He's really, really talented. And he took all the copper piping, so he's going to use that to make a cool musical instrument. Just had a guy come from Barn Boards and More. They're going to do, and they actually do deconstruction too, but they're going to do a dining table and some bench seating. And then we have artists going to do some different things as well. So
I assume you'll, as you always do, be documenting that event, because that would be great to fold into our.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the event, and then I've asked like everyone who's doing this work to document their process as well. And then Sarah Battiali, who's writing another book right now on the reuse side, she's going to put this in that book.
Oh, great.
And she said no one's ever done this before, at least that she knows of, like really recording thoroughly what happens if one structure, like, you know, the diversity of projects that can come from one structure.
Could you see a purpose for us to have a table there?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, let's
Yeah,
keep
so
that.
we'll-
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any knob and tube in there?
Yeah, there is some knob and tube. Yep. Are you interested?
Years and years collection
Oh, really?
of knob and tube.
What was that, Chris?
Knob and tube.
Like the old
wiring.
electrical wiring, yeah.
Sometimes these
Oh,
things
knob.
like-
Not into.
That's great. Is Sarah visited yet, or is she still coming? this
She's
summer?
coming, yeah, at the end of this month. So yeah, I will. I'll give you a heads up before that, but she'll
Yeah.
be here for a few days. So.
I'd really love to meet her.
Yeah,
So, okay,
absolutely.
great.
Danny, how old is the house on Chestnut?
Circa 1800.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's really one of the oldest
it is.
remaining houses.
Yeah, and there were like architectural plans, like as-built plans that I received, but it's so old that like they, you know, drew it up as if it were, you know, balloon frame. It's like before that. I mean, it's basically like a timber frame structure. It's wild. And there's like 2 layers of plaster in the walls, I think, for extra insulation, which I'd never seen before. So yeah, it's
Was
really
it
neat.
back plastered? No.
Yeah, like the mouth. Yeah. So there's like a cavity kind of in there.
It is post and beam.
Yeah, it's post and beam. Yeah,
Was it a partial deconstruction or complete?
we're doing complete.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
So
That's great.
yeah, it's coming along.
Brian, do you have any social media stuff to tell us about?
I'm still hoping for funding from the town.
Have you ever heard?
For videos.
Yeah,
And then Chris mentioned that the people at the music hall are willing to
Yeah.
let us interview the architect and do some shooting there so that we can tell that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if you guys should be connecting any social media with your event to.
Yeah, that'd be great. So yeah, Jess Scott is helping organize that event with me. We have not locked down an exact date, but I think we might do that tomorrow morning in our
Okay.
breakfast and business meeting.
Sometime
Decon.
this summer.
Yeah, it'll be like mid to late August is that's probably when it's going to be.
Great.
Oh, and one last thing, we are like trying to record the history of this house too. So actually, the former owner's son came by and was telling us a little bit about him. So the garage in the back was actually his workshop, and he was a really handy person who was like the neighborhood saw sharpener. We
Mm.
found old receipts
Oh,
from
wow.
the saw sharpening business, and he made violins and all this sort of like cool
Nice.
stuff. Yeah, it was
How
really
much does
fun.
it cost to get a saw sharpened? Did it say?
It says on there. I don't remember. I'll
Oh.
take a look. I'll let you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You can hardly find anyone to do that.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Throw
Yeah.
it away.
Mhm.
So before we move on to Curtis Island, I forgot to say one thing about the preservation ordinance. Brian sent me some research, which I thought was fantastic, just looking into how other towns handle the cost of a consultant that a commission incurs. So his finding in 3 places, it was charged back to the applicant. So it was not a town cost. It is in other towns also borne by the applicant if the commission needs to bring in a consultant in a review process. So that was, it's nice to have that proof point. Curtis Island.
So there are kind of 2 things we hope to do this summer, and I'm saying hope to do because there are a lot of contingencies. One is redo the roof structure on the caretaker's, on the lightkeeper's house. And that would be sort of everything around the roof, you know, the frieze, the cornice, and get all of that solid as well as the chimney repointed and reflashed. And then put a a new roof on it with shingles that are appropriate for the environment and using appropriate nailing patterns and things we know failed, before. And what we would like to do is the foundation, what we're going to try to do is to raise the funds, all the funds to do that. And we're thinking somewhere around $150,000 of kind of direct expenses to get that all up. And then the following year, what we would see doing is take the rest of the outside. So this is just exterior of the house. It's really preserving it and doing it in a way that allows us not to have to redo it every 10, 15 years. So if it needed a new roof in 20 years or 25 years, you're not messing with the roof structure at all. But the roof structure has had some damage. Freeze boards have been ripped in half because the gutters weren't right. And so part of that is the gutter system. And that's such an important feature out there. So again, doing it right. And so we're in the middle of those conversations. And we'll be doing a fundraiser. The foundation will have a formal fundraiser. It's not a capital campaign, but it's really focused on this for this summer. That'll go out sort of mid-June is what we're working toward right now. And the town has put in $50,000 into the town budget, and it's waiting to be approved, but it's still there to my knowledge. And that will go toward repairing the metal roof on the light tower. So
That's the top priority, right? That
and that's
metal
the
roof.
top priority. So between the two, both would have new roofs and a lot of protection. And while we're doing the house, we'll tune up anything else where water could be protruding right now, just so it gets through another year. But it's probably, unless we could just magically raise probably another 150 beyond that, it'll probably end up with a roof this year. And I always have optimistic dreams, but if we could raise the money and whoever we get to do it was able to do it, just stay on the job and let's finish the outside of it. And so if we don't do it this year, we'll do it next year. So
What is the caretaking situation this summer there?
it's being talked about right now.
Oh, okay.
But there's no one set to be on it. But we're having some discussions to see if that I would personally think it'd be good if we could have someone on the island.
What does the caretaker do at this point, or what would the duties be?
They would have to kind of hunker down in a building that's a little rough. But then what I would expect would be to just keep an eye on things, and depending on any specialties they might have, there's all kinds of work that could be done. You could do some cleanup in the house and, paint some of the areas just to stabilize it.
But it's not a long list of responsibilities. It's really just basic caretaking.
Caretaking and then taking care of trails and, if there are problems, you've got someone there that's keeping an eye on it. And so far, it hasn't been much of we haven't had damage from people. So that's been good.
Great. Well, thank you. I know you already talked a little bit about the Plaques program, but do you want to give us a little update? You brought the monster binder.
Yeah, I'm ready to take this monster back to the History Center.
Uh-huh.
But this is from 2018 right up until April 2025. It's everyone who has applied for a plaque, and it's the history of their house and
Wow.
pictures, and it's just good historic information. So Since I still had it, I thought, well, I'll bring it to the meeting and show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I do think we need to talk about going forward. I think there's a better way to do it than what we're doing.
And you said you had some ideas you'd like to present in a couple months. Okay, great.
And I've called Megan Panett at the Belfast Historical Society just to get an idea of who makes their signs that say the Captain Walker House with a date on it and how much it costs and everything. She hasn't gotten back to me yet, but the Historical Society is not open until June in Belfast. So if I just gather a few facts, and then I think the committee can talk about what are some alternatives. Are we going to go forever using the same plaques we've been doing? What would it mean to change horses in the middle of the stream? Just all the different ways that you could look at it.
Okay.
I think the plaque, the manufacture of those plaques is going to be a problem going forward. I mean, just
You mean the old ones?
the old.
Because as Richard Remsen gets older, I think he's less inclined. It's a long process and it's expensive. And so a lot of people would love to have a plaque, I think, but don't apply because it's $160 now and he's going up to $175. And it's like, Richard, I don't. And I understand it takes him hours. It's
Yeah.
a lost wax method,
Hmm.
But anyway, something to think about and talk another time.
And I assume those records have not been digitized correctly.
No, they haven't.
That might be a project for someday. Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, the last house that we did at 22 Mountain Street, the woman who was confused which corner she was on, and she did her whole history based on the wrong corner. And so Rhonda and I have had a really good time figuring it out. And it's been a long time because it's very confusing. It's really confusing. But that's where Joshua Bramhall lived, who was the caretaker out on the island. And he's an extremely interesting man. So Rhonda and I finally delivered to her our take on it. And it was a notebook. Rhonda just does, impeccable work. And so between the two of us, when I gave her notebook with all the information where we think it is, because she was very resistant to the fact that it wasn't the house that she had the name on the outside. She said, "Oh my God, it looks like a college thesis." But anyway, it's been fun. And as soon as she agrees that that's the history of her house, I think we should write it up in terms of this is what can happen when some of the things you can run into when you look at the history of your house. And I think it'll make an interesting article. But she hasn't gotten back to us since I delivered it last Friday or Thursday to tell us what she thinks. But we know we're right. But it's tricky.
Great. And I know that we've received a new application this last month. Okay. Does anybody else have anything else they want to discuss or add to the agenda? On anyone's mind or?
Can I make an announcement?
Yes.
So I've organized summer internships for youth the past 2 summers in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Doing that now through my business. So if you know anyone ages 16 to 24 looking for summer work and interested in doing some deconstruction and reuse type work, let me know.
That's through Habitat.
This will be, I'm trying to partner with Habitat, through what I'm doing, but this will be through my business, Second Story Builders.
What's the name of it?
Second Story Builders.
Okay.
Such a good name. I love it.
Thanks.
Okay, great. You have a motion
Move
to,
adjourn.
thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Get on that.
All right, all in favor? Aye, aye. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Right.
Thank you all.
Chris.
Yeah.